RFK Stadium was the first cookie-cutter NFL MLB stadium. Opening in 1961, it began a trend of building circular-shaped stadiums throughout the 60s and 70s. It would also survive long enough to be one of the last. This is RFK Stadium, first and one of the last of its kind. Using stadiums for more than one sport was common throughout the 20th century. Whether it be baseball fields having a football field squeezed on a diamond, or having a purpose-built multi-purpose stadium such as Cleveland Stadium. Up until the 1960s, however, there was not a standard design for building a shared-use NFL MLB stadium. This would result in a wide variety of features and drawbacks for shared-use stadiums. In the late 1950s, however, a new stadium design would take effect when RFK was built, then known as DC Stadium for the first years of its life. Unlike other multi-purpose stadiums of the era, this design would specifically be built to have the most seamless transition possible, not being primarily shaped for either football or baseball, and having much more movable and retractable seating. This would ease the transition process between sports and events. The Washington Redskins would open the stadium in 1961, while the Washington Senators would begin play there in 1962, with then-President John F. Kennedy on hand for the first pitch. This new design proved successful enough early on, where more would soon be built. New cookie-cutter style stadiums such as Busch Stadium in St. Louis, Shea Stadium in New York, Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, Atlanta Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta, and others would soon dot the landscape of American sports venues. After Robert F. Kennedy's assassination in 1968, the stadium would take on its more well-known name, Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Stadium, or RFK for short, in 1969. Even though RFK was a trailblazer in stadium design, it would only serve as an MLB NFL shared stadium for its first 10 years. In 1971, Senators owner Bob Short, facing much personal debt from the expansion fees paid to establish the team, decided to move the team to Dallas, Texas, at which point they would become the Texas Rangers. This was with the Senators' expiration of their first lease at RFK. The stadium would go on to be home to various soccer teams in various leagues in the following years, while serving as the home of the Redskins until the conclusion of the 1996 season. Unlike the timely demolition of similar vacated dual-use stadiums in the 90s and early 2000s, RFK would have an extended life. This would be well after the Redskins left. Beginning in RFK's final year as an NFL stadium, the then newly established DC United MLS franchise would begin its 21-year stay at the stadium. Though much larger than necessary capacity-wise for MLS games, it kept RFK from seeing demolition during a time where nearly every similar stadium was demolished. After 34 years, even MLB baseball would return to RFK, with the move of the Montreal Expos to Washington, D.C. in 2005. The Nationals were only a temporary tenant. However, it did grant the stadium one of its original intended configurations once again. After the Nationals moved to Nationals Park in 2008, DC United would move 10 years later to the soccer-specific Audi Field in 2018. RFK would maintain a standing but not operating status for the following years. However, with maintenance costs and lack of use, it was finally announced in 2019 that demolition plans were in the works. In 2022, this trailblazing stadium, after having its life long extended past its main original tenants relocating, will be no more. NFL football may return to its site in the future, with some plans suggesting the now Washington football team building a new stadium there. But only time will tell. Thank you for watching.